Hey there folks, and welcome to this video. This is a follow-up to some videos that I've already been doing on this channel on the best drivers in terms of the best performing drivers for 2025 so far. So in this video we're going to have a bit of a look at that. We're going to talk about some of the things that are standing out so far since we're a quarter of the way through the year. Let's get on with it. And for those of you that are new, the way it works is like this. For every race that I watch, for every event that I watch, in the case of something like a rally, I rate people based off of their relative performances. So that means that it's possible for Max Verstappen to get a 10 out of 10, but he'll have to dominate the weekend to do it. On the other hand, if somebody like, say, Gabriel Bortoleto got a top 5, that could possibly be a 10 out of 10 as well. Because the Sauber is not at the same end of the field as, say, Verstappen usually is, or that a McLaren usually would be in comparison. So it's just about the best performance, really. It's quite fun, and it chucks out some really interesting figures. So let's get into it. Because for the third month in a row, the best performing driver has been Nick Tandy. Now, he's only done 2 races, but Rolex 24 was great. 12 Hours of Sebring was still pretty good, but yeah, it's the fact that him and Nasser both ended up picking up wins. So, because him and his teammates were up there, they are naturally going to score pretty high. Oliver Rowland is still up in second place because we haven't had a Formula E race, I think, since the last update that I did at the end of February. But there have been some movers and shakers. I'm going to talk about the ones who've done more than 3 starts, because there are another 3 drivers who are on 8.0 and they're tied. Elfyn Evans, who got one of the first 10 out of 10s of the year with Safari Rally Kenya. Oscar Piastri, who has toed and froed a little bit. And then the other one is Felipe Nasr, who, well, it's not surprising, I just mentioned his teammate, didn't I? Then after that, we have 3 F1 drivers all tied for what's technically 18th from the standings, which are Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, and George Russell, with Lewis having the most ebbing and flowing of that 3. The reason why I didn't mention any of the other ones and skip like a dozen drivers is because some of these drivers only got scored for one event. So Will Crichton on the East Riding stages, for example, or Jimmy Johnson in the Daytona 500, or Sebastian Ogier, who will have his second WRC start of the season around Isla Canaria. So we can see what happens later on with them, but right now we don't have enough data. So yeah, unfortunately don't have much to say apart from that. What I can say down towards the other end of the field is there have been some other drivers who have struggled. For example, Liam Lawson and Jack Doohan are right down at the lower end of that field. Other drivers that have done more than one event, Stingray Rob is down there. Cody Ware is very far down there, especially considering he has 8 starts to his name for the year so far. Usually you'd expect somebody to be performing a bit better. Carlos Sainz Jr. has had a couple of bits and pieces where it's just not been the greatest performances, especially relative to where we were expecting him to be. But yeah, some of the ones that are a bit further up but have a lot of starts, the likes of Cole Custer and Ty Gibbs, who are tied. And then there are a bunch of drivers who hover around the 4.0-ish mark out of 10. Which then leads me quite nicely being able to talk about the other stats and how I've been boiling some stuff down. Because in addition to this, I wanted to see some more number crunching. So I asked how many drivers have I done these ratings for so far this year, which is 611 across the races I've watched. There have been 1,467 scores given out, and a total of 7,373 points, which means the average points per score is just above a 5.0, which relatively tracks, right? You would expect that the average would be somewhere around the middle. But then it leads to some of the weirder stats that we can break down. So the average number of starts a driver has is 2.4. Which makes sense given that we've got nearly 1,500 scores given so far. But strangely enough, the person with the most starts is Austin Cindric. I mean, I say strangely enough. At the same time, he did the Rolex 24 and has started every NASCAR Cup race so far this season. I think SVG would also be on there, for example. But let's talk about some of the other ones that stand out. For example, because the average score is so close to a 5.0, the highest scoring person with a 5.0 is going to be the average one. And funny enough, that position is 342nd. John Hunter Nemechek picks it up. The highest score of a 7.0 and a lowest score of a 4.0. Most consistent driver, on the other hand, is Felipe Nasr. He's got 2 8.0s. That is possibly hardly surprising. I need to try and figure out if I can find it so it does some kind of weird matrices about the most consistent being over the most starts as well. But the least consistent one is equally interesting. Because it's Max Günther. And he has had one hell of a start to the season so far. He's sitting on average rating of a... What is it that he's sitting on? Is he sitting on a 5.4 apparently? Yeah, apparently he's sitting down at a 5.4. Which means that he's had definitely a topsy-turvy start of the year at the very least. But the performance range he's got is 7 points. His highest score was a 9.0, and he picked that up at the first Jeddah race. And then what he did at the start of the second Jeddah race gave him a 2.0. I mean, if you've had such a good performance and you're as good a driver as Max Günther is, to make the mistake like that right at the start of the race, I know it's Formula E, but it's not really yet. But yeah, he's still got the greatest range, and with that one, I believe that it is calculated by a spread across the different events. I think it is the same with the most consistent as well, but it definitely has worked out like that for poor Max Günther there. But another thing that it also allows us to generate is what the average score per event is, which is also 5.4. I think I said 5.4 for Max Günther. His actual average is 5.67. So across the 39 races, including rallies in that as a single event that I've watched so far this season, the average score per event is a 5.4. Which is interesting considering that the average points that each individual score is a 5.0. The highest event average was a 7.23, which I think it's because so many people got to the end of Safari Rally Kenya. Now, I think that stat is a bit messed up because I am not counting everybody in the WRC for it. So maybe I should start doing that because that might change it and make it look a bit more even. But a 7.23 is interesting. Comparison, the IndyCar opener at St. Petersburg was a 5.95593 even, which put it at the lowest. The closest in terms of the most average event average came in at a 5.136. So remember, 5.4 is the average score per event. 5.136, we have the F2 season opener, the one event from Australia that we got for F2, which is quite funny. Quite funny that is, but it's because there are some people who did really well. So the likes of Browning, Fornaroli, and Dirksen I gave high scores to. But then the likes of Kushmani, Jack Crawford, Victor Martins got much lower scores. So, yeah. Interesting, to say the least. And I hope you found something interesting in that. I like doing these stranger videos where I talk about statistics for a few minutes. And I'll probably do some of these for every month to the end of the year as well. Thanks for watching, folks. And until next time, bye-bye for now.